Hi, I'm Vic Bearcroft, and today I'm going to show you how to paint this lovely red fox at sunset using just a few coloured pastels on dark grey velour. To start with, I've just done a fairly loose proportional sketch using a charcoal pencil. Quite light, so if I want to make any changes then it's a lot easier, because obviously, as you probably know, if you used velour before, it's very hard to get rid of those marks once they're on there. But using a charcoal pencil I can fairly easily rub those marks down and repaint or redraw them. If you want to, you can use a white pastel stick or something like that you can get rid of quite easily. So once I've got my proportional sketch in place, what I want to do next is the foundation of the painting, which is the tonal sketch. So it's detailing a little bit more of the sketch and then adding some tones to create form. So we'll start with the ears and work down. So first of all, the ear, using a rounded corner of this hard black pastel. The ear on the opposite side is further away from us, so I'm going to keep it quite soft and just shade that in gently, just to get a shape for the ear more than anything. I don't want necessarily a furry edge to that. The ear closest to us, this one, can be a little bit more detailed, but again it's still got a fairly velvety texture in real life, so using a rounded corner of the hard black pastel without necessarily drawing any fur will give you that nice velvet look or velvet feel. So around the back of the ear, I'll shade this bit in while I'm there, just make it a little bit darker. Down to the join in the ear with a little pouch at the back. The inner part of the ear, of course, is a hollow, and it's a darker shade, surrounded by hairs growing from the outside in. Now at this stage we can mark those hairs in roughly, and then again lightly fill in the centre. Don't try to go for the full darks at this stage. What you want to do is to allow yourself a little bit of room to manoeuvre. So if something goes slightly wrong, you put too much tone on, you can go back and correct it. But if you do make it too dark, you can't really make it any lighter. But if you err on the side of caution, make it a little bit lighter tone than you actually need, then you can always add more. It's easier to add than it is to take that tone away. So now we're coming on to fur texture. What I'm not going to do, by the way, is do an outline around what will be the highlights at the end. If we do a strong outline around here, where we're going to have highlights, then it's going to be harder to put those highlights on. So at this point, I'm starting to think about fur texture. Now, fur texture is easiest, I think, to create using the shadows between clumps of fur. So if I do that, just sketching quite lightly the thicker fur around the neck, thicker and slightly longer. The most important things to remember are the length and the direction, and indeed the thickness. So as long as you get the length and the direction and the thickness of the fur mapped out at this stage, and I often call it a fur map, then you should have no problem. So we get shorter, slightly finer around the throat, but follow the direction. You'll see that fairly clearly on the reference photograph. So if you're having a go with one of our materials sets, then you'll get the photograph included and you can see quite a lot of detail on there. You don't have to do as much detail as there is on the photograph. One thing you'll notice, of course, is that we're changing the background. So I want to show you how you can take a fairly standard reference photograph, daylight photograph in this case, and change the setting, change the mood, change the background, change the atmosphere. Sometimes make it more dramatic. So as we move in towards the face, then we can start sketching or mapping out the fur around the side of the head, which is a little bit finer, shorter and so on. Keep an eye on the direction, that's important. When we get to the muzzle, we'll be no fur texture to speak of because it's very, very short, so we'll deal with that in a different way. So the head next. So if we start between the eyes, then the fur is going to go up that way and then around here. But very, very short. And remember, don't try to make it too dark or too detailed even at this stage. We can add finer details at the end without any problem. So I don't want to pepper this with loads and loads of fur texture, just a hint coming to the base of the ear so we can see what's underlying. Of course, if you're one of these people that like to do a lot of detail, a lot of fur, then go ahead. There's no rule that says you can't do that. You do as little or as much as you want. We'll come back to the eye shortly. The eye on the opposite side is just going to be a bit of the eyelash, upper eyelash is showing. And then we'll do the nose, the nostril line. I don't like to do individual nostrils. What I like to do is just do the nostril line and then the overall shape of the lower part of the nose, and we can fill that in. The upper part will be slightly highlighted. So next, coming down, the cleft between the lips at the top, the other lip or cheek will be that side as a highlight later on. What I don't want to do next is to do like a line for his lip line or his sort of wry smile. I'm going to follow the line and just make it a little bit more jagged to indicate that there's fur growing from that top lip up into that little curved smile that he has. Notice also that as I'm working through this, I'm giving it a little rub with the side of the finger. That will push the pastel into the paper so it sticks, it will never move then. But also it softens the marks a little bit. Whisker follicles next. Well, to start with, just above the nose we have a couple of scent glands, you can put those in. Then we have 4 rows of whisker follicles. I'll mark those out as very faint lines to begin with. Now I can put the actual dots for the follicles. And they're useful because they curve around the cheek and help to show you that curve. And give it a little rub, and then we'll start with the visible eye, this one. Upper eyelid shape first, get the angle right. The corner of the eye, then the inner corner, which helps you get the curve of the eyeball correct. Take that up to the tear duct, which is like a little channel in the corner. And we can fill that in, and then we'll put the pupil in just about here. Note that foxes have slit pupils, not like domestic cats, because they're nocturnal hunters by nature, and having the slit pupil during daylight hours helps to protect more the sensitive light cells at the back of the eye. So if you're drawing or painting an animal that's a nocturnal hunter, you usually find it will have slits during the daytime. So a little indication of the cheekbone below the eye there, and then we'll pop in a little bit of a texture in the shadow part underneath the cheekbone. And that might be as much texture as we need at this stage. We can always put some more in later on, of course. Next thing we're going to do is add some tonal values. So if we have 3 tonal values, dark, mid and light tone, we have something that has form. For now, the light tone will be the paper itself. Even though it's dark grey, it will still appear very light compared to the tones we're about to add. So using the flat of our black pastel, first thing I'm going to do is put an overall lightish grey tone in. So starting with the inner ear on this side, which is going to be away from the light, hence the shadow. So give it a good rub, and remember, do it lightly because you can always add more layers, you can always add more tone, but it's not so easy to take that off. Then all of the red-brown fur, which basically comes down from here, top of the snout, and around this section, is going to have the same sort of mid-grey tone to begin with, including the eye, because the eyes are set well back, they need tones as well. This is your first chance really to show the outline, a nice soft outline rather than a drawn line. Again, on the reference photograph, this bridge of the nose may look quite white, but I think that's just the light, bright light shining on it. So in fact, the fox has a bit of brown snout at the top, white underneath. And again, rub it in as you go, especially around the edges, because you want to keep the edges nice and soft. So notice I've gone over the eye as well at this point. This lower left hand side, I beg your pardon, is going to be pushed away into shadow, so that's what we'll do now. This is predominantly white fur. We'll push that away into the corner, like so. And let's have a little squint at it. It's always a good idea to sit back and squint to check your tones. So I think what we'll do is we'll have just another light wash of grey over the red-brown fur and over the eye too, over the highlight on the tip of the nose. Don't worry about a precise line for the bridge of the nose yet. Do that with the highlight later on. So this is the red-brown fur, what will be red-brown fur. And then the white fur, well, some of it is going to be in shadow, maybe this part, underneath the top lip, around the chin, and around here. Some of that will be in shadow, some of it won't. So what I'm going to do is use a light grey tone to indicate what's in shadow, and that's going to help give us that little curve of the cheek there. So I'll do a little shadow underneath the tip of the nose as well, and then down into the chin. Again, I'm not going to worry about the precise shape of the chin yet. We'll sort that out later with our highlight. This will be partly in shadow, but the edges will be highlighted, so that should do. Let's have a little squint. Yeah, that's fine. So that's our tonal sketch completed. The next step is to start to add some base colours. I'm going to be using 3 colours for the whole painting. First of all, we have the purple, dark Sazine purple. We have standard cadmium orange. Then we have a dark orange, which is the same orange with black added to it. This gives you like a golden brown colour. So I just want to do a hint of a sunset sky behind the fox. Now, obviously at home you can improvise if you want to. You can put a different background in. You can put a hill with some silhouette trees or something like that. But this is just going to be an indication of sunset sky. And I like to start with the purple first, gently, remember. This is a soft pastel, it's going to come off onto the paper quite readily. We'll start off at an angle and start to flatten it out. That's the way I like to do the skies. Makes them more dynamic, I think. Again, rub it in fairly well because now it's a soft pastel and we don't want any residue clinging to the fibres of the paper at the top. Everything wants to be pushed into the fibres. So we'll have a little bit more, just a hint more colour on there. You can see the streaky sunset sky is starting to develop. Make sure you go just into the edge of your subject as well to avoid having a grey outline all the way around. Just pull the colour into the outline a little bit. You can paint over that very easily, so don't worry about that. Next thing I want to do is take the cadmium orange and start to feed it in before the purple ends. It helps to give that streaky sky look. Again, bring it into the edge of your subject, flatten it out in the bottom right. So you can imagine maybe he's sat on top of a mound or something like that with open sky behind him, looking out into the fields, something like that. A little bit at a time, lean back and check your colour, and we'll put some streaky clouds up in the early evening sky over the purple. These two colours are actually complementary colours, purple and orange, they go together really, really well. Have a little bit bolder clouds down below. And again, just give it a little rub. So it's quite a simple but fairly reasonable suggestion of a sunset sky, I think. I don't want to do too much to detract from our main subject, which is the fox. So the base colours for the fox, going to be using two colours for this. First of all, the purple, which is going to be for the shadow areas. So it helps to push shadows back, especially in the white fur, and cooler areas like the tear ducts, the nose, and around the front of the muzzle. Maybe the inner part of the ear as well. So I'll just have a little bit in there, just a touch. Maybe a touch on the ear furthest away. As cool colours recede, warm colours come forward. That helps to push that ear back. And a little bit around where the tear duct is going to be, underlying. Don't be afraid of using vivid colours at this stage, by the way, because that purple, although it may look strong now, will very soon fade back. So we're going to have a little hint of purple on the cold nose and the front of the snout. It's all connected. Don't just do the purple on the tip of the nose and leave it, because it will look like it's been added on afterwards. A little bit of purple around this grey shadowed area of the muzzle, and again just hints where we have the white fur in shadow as well. So it helps to bring the subject into the background as well, you know, using same colours, gives a sense of harmony overall. So that's the purple, and next we're going to use as a base colour our cadmium orange for the red brown fur. So starting at the top of the head, just going down into the ear. Remember, light layers are best, so don't worry if it doesn't come out strong enough when you start. We can always add another layer. So start with a light layer and bring that down onto the bridge of the nose, underneath the eye, over the eye as well, of course, and around the ear, into the neck, behind the ear. So that's our first layer. Now that isn't that strong. Once I rub it in, it'll fade it back even more. Notice what's not happening is the pencil, or sorry, the pastel sketch we did earlier on is staying exactly where you put it. So you can't get rid of that now by painting over the top. That's the beauty of the law. What I'm going to do is put another layer on top of there. So even though this is going to be the shadow side, away from the light, I still want to see a little bit of sort of red-brown colour, orange in this case, in that fur. So it's going to be a little bit darker overall than your reference picture, but you learn how to adapt. If you can learn how to adapt, adjust the lighting how you want it, and learn how to adapt, then it's quite an easy process. So that's our second foundation, which is adding our base colours. So now we're going to go on to the next stage, which is adding details. Now we've already sketched out some details. This is all about enhancing the details where you want them to be enhanced. If we start with the ear furthest away, and we want to keep that fairly soft, I want to do just a soft layer of black over there, which allows some of the purple to still show through. The idea of putting a colour underneath black is to stop it looking too flat. So if you're painting a dog's nose, for example, you might want to do an undercoat of Prussian blue to give it that bluish, cool hint. So this one here is a little bit stronger, quite velvety, and that brings it closer to us. That one gets pushed away a little bit. And the inner part of the ear, again, we can cut out, or begin to cut out, the hairs going into the centre, a little bit more refined, and then fill in the centre part a little bit stronger. And remember, you don't have to make your tones as strong, or indeed the same as your reference photograph. If you're using a reference that has quite a bright light on it, sort of midday or something like that, the shadows are going to be stronger, the highlights are going to be stronger, and if you're changing it to a sunset scene like this, the light is going to be softer, so your shadows will be softer as well as your highlights. So just bear that in mind. And add a little bit more texture around the neck. Same procedure as before, using the shadows between different clumps of fur to create the clumps of fur. overlaying like that. If you find it comes out too grey, don't worry, you can put a layer of colour over the top. And indeed, if you repeat this process a few times, you'll find that you're going to get deeper, richer, probably more realistic looking fur. So even if you repeat this particular section 2-3 times, you'll get more fur. Just dark, medium, light. Just keep adding colour over the top, glazing colour over the top, and so on. So we've got the edge of the ruff going into the neck, and the same as before, adjust the length and direction of your strokes, how fine the strokes are, and so on. So turning the pastel around to a sharper corner. That's the beauty of these pastels, they've got several brushes in one, sharp corners for fine details, flat sides for painting large areas, and so on. So we'll add a little bit more texture into the forehead and around the eyes. That's going to be our point of focus, the base of the ears. And it will be coming out a little bit grey, but don't worry, we can soften that with the next layer. You can begin to soften by giving it a rub with your finger, but I'll show you how to get rid of the greyness of it in a minute. So a little bit of texture, very short texture under the cheek. We'll do the nose again, so the nostril. Then we want to keep a nice soft purple highlight on the top for now. And a sharper edge around the lower part of the nose, going down between the top lips. We do our whisker follicles and our mouth line. Again, slightly sharper corner this time, just to get that jagged fur edged top lip. A little bit more shading over that purple, softly, softly. All the layers that you do on velour should be nice and soft, transparent. It's the only pastel surface you can use this sort of glazing technique on, like a traditional oil painting technique. So make it work for you. A little bit of shading on the inner part of the eye. And I'm just shading it flat because that fur is way too short to do actual texture. So, before we do the eye, next thing to do is we'll take the golden brown, which is that dark orange. So, a couple of things we can do. First of all, we can knock back some of this greyness, the flat side, or the long side I should say, of our dark orange, gently. And that will turn that sort of greyish texture into more of a dark brown texture. So, around the ears. Down into the back of the neck, up into the forehead. That's just a glazing technique. So that takes the greyness off the section we've just done. Now we can add a little bit more fur texture with this too. So using the sharper edge of this pastel, we can actually add fur texture, mid-tone fur texture. So around the eyes, into the forehead, around the base of the ears. Again, keep an eye out for length and direction. Above the eye. So we can do a little bit and then give it a rub. That'll give us the impression of having more fur. So I repeat, if you do this section dark, medium and light a few times, 2 or 3 times, or even more if you have the time and the patience to do it, you'll just get deeper, richer looking fur. So slightly longer coming out to the edge of the cheeks, the ruff if you like. And give it a good firm stroke, let it disappear towards the left hand side. So that should do us. So next thing we're going to work on is the white. So if we take the white pastel and very gently, using the flat of the white pastel, we can bring up this, what it appears to be now pale grey. It's actually dark grey paper. So just infuse a little bit of white where we have the white fur, gently, so we get hints of that purple coming through as well. And remember, this is your shadow side. But keep it nice and gentle. And in the neck fur, you can softly highlight some of the spaces in between our shadows to help reinforce the idea of these being sort of thicker clumps of fur. Don't worry about the outer edge. It's going to be lit up by the sun. Don't worry about that yet. That'll be for the end, through that little stroke. And the same with the orange fur around the eyes, nose and mouth. So if we do that very gently, what happens, because we've got those oranges underneath, then the white won't come out too white. It'll just be a very pale orange. So it's a good idea to get your base colours in early to make sure that they're fairly strong, fairly vivid, especially if you're doing highlights with a white pastel. So it mutes that white, stops it looking too harsh. So you can do some finer fur texture around the eyes with a sharper corner. And up into the forehead the same, short strokes of course. So we now have dark, medium and light fur. Inside the ears, or around the ears generally, we have that little pouch at the back, which is a little flap of skin that allows the ears to move around and fold back, etc. And we have hairs coming into the centre of the ear from the outside. So again, nice and gentle. Always when you're doing longer hairs like this and you want them to be visible, just rub away where you have the roots. It leaves the ends showing and they're nice and sharp. So bring it in from the outer edge. A stroke like that. This part of the ear is going to be white fur, and that's going to be lit up by sunlight, so I'm not going to do that yet. That will be our final highlights. So before we do our final highlights, we'll work on the eye and other final details. So the eye is lost at the moment. It has very little tone and very little colour. So if we want to bring that back, first of all, what I'm going to do is use a slightly sharper corner and reinforce the shape of the upper eyelid. A little bit of shadow underneath, a little bit of shadow in the corner there. And sort of redraw it, but a little bit more carefully, a little bit sharper. And not forgetting our tear duct. And a little hint of the cheekbone underneath the eye, and of course the pupil. Just the eyelashes, upper part of the eye on the other side. So, as for the eye itself, we have a base coat of orange in there. The fox is going to have a kind of amber coloured eye, I guess. So if we use our darker orange, the golden brown, and make that the actual colour of the fox's eye, then all we have to think about on top of that is our lighting. So where we're going to get highlights and reflections and shadows and so on. So if I use the cadmium orange, a standard orange, for our highlight, which the highlight is on the coloured part of the eye, by the way, following the light across like that, a low light, and that's going to light up the iris on the opposite side, so about here. Just a little hint of the cadmium orange. Where the light hits the eye on the outer layer, it will cause a reflection. And we'll pop that about here, not too strong, it's not a bright light, just a little hint of a shine like that. And then we can finish the eye just by tidying it up with the black pastel. So if we've lost a little bit on the pupil, we can bring that back, or lost a little bit around the eye itself, we can bring that back at the end. So it makes it nice and sharp and everything's in focus. So now if we look at a painting as it is, we can see that the eye is the strongest part. So what we need to do is decide what should match the eye in terms of strength of tone, light and dark. Well, certainly any of the features as far as I'm concerned. So the nose, I usually go for ears, eyes, nose, mouth. They're all basically on the same level, the same plane, so they should all have similar tones and similar amounts of sharp detail in them. So down to the mouth, sharp corner again, get that nice jagged edge of the top lip, dual stroke, any whisker follicles that need enhancing, we can do them now. We'll put a little bit more shadow underneath this curved bit of the cheek, which is kind of an overhanging section. A little bit of shadow underneath there. Maybe a little bit more shadow between the eyes. So we've got the rounded forehead here, going into a little dip before it reaches the bridge of the nose. That all helps to create underlying form, anatomical structure. Maybe a little bit more shadow in the corner of the eye, under the highlighted cheekbone, and just a touch around here as well, for these oval cheeks. So, highlights. What I always like to think of is the highlights are in two parts. Secondary highlights, such as fur on the inside and so on, non-white highlights if you like, and then your final highlights which are either going to be in white or off-white. They're very strong ones that are going to give it a dramatic impact. So to start off with, I'm using the cadmium orange again. Now imagine our light is going to be sort of more orange than yellow. So if we've got red-brown fur, it's going to pick up quite a lot of that orange light. So you can be quite heavy-handed with this. If you're not sure, then obviously do it in a couple of light layers. Otherwise, we want that light shining through and shining on the red-brown fur to be quite visible, to lift it off the background. So the same on the forehead. These moments, when you're doing the final highlights, are really a good opportunity for you to really carefully shape things like the forehead, the outline of the nose and so on. You don't have to do them before this stage. So a nice light shining on his forehead. You can maybe have a little bit of light shining on the more rounded bits around the eye, such as the eyelid, the eyebrow, and of course the cheekbone. That being a warm colour pushes those areas forwards, gives you another sense of three-dimensional form in a part of the eye, maybe one or two flecks of fur that the sun's catching perhaps. Then the bridge of the nose. Now what I always do is start off with the line of the nose, make sure we get the line of the nose correct, bring it down to there, but we can't leave it like that because that is essentially just a highlight on a two-dimensional object. What we want is the nose to look three-dimensional. So bring that highlight in from the edge that you've just drawn, even just a little bit. That will then give us a three-dimensional nose rather than a two-dimensional nose. It's like doing a highlight on a ball. If you did a line around a circle as a highlight, then you're highlighting a disc. If you bring it in from that edge, then it looks like a sphere, ball. So there's the highlight on his nose. Then we can switch to our white pastel. And remember, as we did earlier on, what we can do with the white pastel, we'll start with the ears first. What we can do with the white pastel is do soft highlights, like the offside ear over there. Always rub just the inner part, work around the edge and then just rub the inner part so it blends in nice and softly. This ear can be a little bit stronger because it's closer to us. So if we start around the edge and then bring it back in, do that little rub so we don't see the join. And we can do some individual hairs sticking out from the edge of the ear. So when we come to the red-brown fur, what we can do is put a little bit of white, what we want it to be slightly stronger, slightly paler, a little bit of white over that orange on key areas to bring them forward, and that gives us a very, very pale orange, as you can see. So gently, gently. So rather than everything being too brightly orange, we can now get pale orange highlights in areas like that. So if we work on the opposite eye and just bring that, or create that pale orange just on the outer edge of the nose, just adds another dimension to it. Makes it look a little bit softer. So around the muzzle and the nose itself, if we've got a slight backlighting effect, what we want to do is a nice tidy, fairly fine line, again keeping it three-dimensional, over the tip of the nose. Now we can put the cheek in on the other side, which we haven't done so far. Nice and strong, it's white fur, remember, a little hint of the white fur on the inside too. And then the chin, so we can do the outline of the chin. So some of these things you may not see on your reference, but if you think about it, you be aware of what you need to do. So bring that in a little bit, make it look rounded, and coming down into the throat. So the throat is fairly short-furred, and it helps to keep that pastel quite flat, get that short fur look. Also, what it does is provides another example of three-dimensional form. So rather than just doing a line, we can highlight a shape. So we can see the three-dimensional shape of the throat, thicker fur around the neck. So again, start on the inside, flick it out to get individual hairs, and go back and just soften the inner edge like so. And softer highlights around the mouth, in between the whisker follicles, just little hints of fur, nothing more than that. Bring it all together. So just another little check, and I think we're almost done. Apart from adding some final whiskers. We will add some final whiskers now. So very fine whiskers for the fox, shorter and finer at the front, slightly longer, slightly thicker towards the back. So just rub away the roots a little bit, and we'll sign it. So remember, if you're going to have a go at this using one of our material sets or doing it completely from scratch, do show us what you achieve through the Facebook page, which is showing on the screen anytime now, and do subscribe to my YouTube channel where you'll be seeing lots more tutorials like this. So thanks for watching, I hope you've enjoyed it, and see you next time.